Welcome to the Untypical Parent Podcast. It's a podcast for parents in additional needs families, and I'm your host, Liz Evans. This is the place to find your reassurance that there is no such thing as a perfect parent. It's here to make the hard bits feel lighter and the good bits brighter. Just quickly before we get started, are you looking for practical ways to support a child experiencing school anxiety? This season, I'm delighted to let you know that the Untypical Parent Podcast is sponsored by Terri Wyse from Wyse Inclusion and Rachel Helm from Helm Education Consultancy. They are experts in inclusive education and supporting children who struggle to access school. Together, they run webinars and workshops to help parents and schools work together and improve outcomes for children experiencing emotionally based school anxiety. If you're supporting a child struggling with school attendance, check the link in the show notes to find out more about how Terri and Rachel can support you. Thanks for being here. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Untypical Parent Podcast. I'm going to start today with a bit of a statistic. Over 170,000 children were severely, and when they say severely, apparently that meant over 50% of their time in school was not in school, were severely absent in 2023 to 2024. And that has come from the Department of Education in regards to pupil absence in schools in England. So the government know we have a bit of an issue with kids being able to attend school for a number of reasons. Now, this one sits a little close to my heart because this is something that I had for my son and has been a personal experience for me. But what I wanted to do today was to introduce two very special people to the podcast who have come forward to sponsor the podcast for this season, which I am delighted about. So I have the lovely Terri Wyse, who has Wyse Inclusion. And we also have Rachel Helm, who has Helm Consultancy. No, Helm Education Consultancy.
Education
That's my
consultancy, yeah.
dyslexia. They're all run the wrong way. Okay. So
Works,
Rachel
works.
and Terri have joined me today just really as a bit of an introduction because it's really important that the podcast keeps running. And by them offering some sponsorship has enabled us to do that. But what I think is really important, I wanted to give Terri and Rachel a really good opportunity to come on and introduce themselves and talk a bit about what it is that they do and where they've come from and why they're doing what they're doing, because I think it might be really helpful for some of the listeners for the Untypical Parent Podcast. So, Terri and Rachel, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having us here.
Very welcome. You're very welcome. So we're going to talk a little bit about EBSA. Now, I'm going to acknowledge for a moment is that there's a lot of terminology around this. What we're talking about is emotionally based school avoidance. Sometimes it gets called emotionally based school anxiety. In the past, it's been called emotionally based school refusal, sometimes EBSR. And still there is this, the terminology doesn't feel quite right for a lot of people, and there's a lot of discussion around it. For argument's sake, today we are going to use the acronym EBSA, but we acknowledge that that might not be quite an accurate description of what that actually means. But if I started with you, Rachel, what is EBSA? How would you describe it?
So I'm not usually very picky about language, if I'm honest. I am not easily offended by most language at all. I've worked with a lot of young people who use some very colourful language. But I think because of the personal link, the word avoidance in EBSA, it does bother me because it does have connotations with a choice. So for me, I use EBSA as in anxiety based, because that's what my child has experienced. But I know there are so many terms, and for me, it's not one particular term. But I know that each parent will have a difficulty with, some or one of the terminologies. But for me, it's the anxiety that's starting to build up for young people. And I think anxiety has become a term that has gone through a stage of people saying it's been overused. But now it is actually describing what these young people are going through because their school system doesn't fit what they need.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Terri, why the interest in EBSA? Why are you and Rachel interested in EBSA? What does it mean to you?
So for me, I'm a head teacher of a special school, and way before the acronym ever existed, I started to see a certain cohort of children coming through education who had really high levels of anxiety. And even within our setting, where we're able to really adapt, as you know, in lots of different ways to meet a full range of needs, we were still seeing children that were really struggling to attend school. There was, I would say, quite a link there with the children that had been diagnosed autistic or were presenting as being autistic. And so we realised that even within our setting, we had to start offering something a little bit different if we were going to keep these children attending school. And I think there was evidence even then that there were real issues around safety and the feeling of safety in an educational setting. And some of that we were dealing with for a few as a result of what was going in our setting, but mostly it was things that had gone on at primary school, or if we were admitting children to our setting in year 8 or year 9, where it had gone wrong in secondary school, in a mainstream secondary setting. And so I think that's where we started to try different ways of supporting need. And for some of the children, it did work, and for others, it didn't. But over time, we've developed our practice at our setting. And now we've got a provision in place that I think really does meet the majority of children's needs if they are children that have experienced challenge in mainstream settings. Um, the Then we had COVID, and then I think the label came after that, the acronym. That's when I started to hear it. In my part of the country, it's EBSA, so just to throw another another
Okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, emotionally based school non-attendance. That's what
Okay, that's another one. Okay.
that's the one that I use. And when I first started speaking to Rachel, I kept slipping into that. We were like, there's an extra N in here somewhere. But yeah, so
Usually
we
parents, doesn't it? When you think about parents trying to navigate this, that
yeah.
actually there isn't a unified name for it, even across the counties.
Yeah, it's very difficult to have that shared language.
Yeah.
Um, and also when you throw in the mix I think in educational settings before anxiety became, well, no, not, I suppose it's where anxiety became linked to the setting causing the anxiety. I think as educationalists, we were very much taught about attachment, and children may be struggling to attend school because they were so attached to being at home, and there would be issues around attachment needs there with often the mum. But I think that's where then it's been hard for some schools to accept that the issue is actually school. And
In the
so
setting.
yeah,
And I think then that creates what Terry and I have, I suppose, kind of the backbone of why we've come together. It's then kind of, we see this friction between families and the school of, I suppose people need ownership and accountability. And when your child is going through something and experiencing something like EBSA, you want to put a cause on it so that you can address that cause. And often there's no single cause. And often it's on the back of, so with my daughter, it's plain sailing through school. She's not the child that I thought we would have difficulties with. I've had years of fighting for my for my older son who's got disabilities and physical disabilities and autism, and I've had years of fighting for him, and she was always there. She's going to be fine. She's going to be okay. And it was her who then transitioned into secondary. But I think all the way deep down as a mother, I knew this is too easy. This transition's far too easy. This has gone very simply. And then it started going wrong, and then when you experience it as well from a parent perspective, I think your eyes are opened a little bit more to, I think you get a lot of, we'll just make them go to school, or
Yeah.
you're causing it as a parent. You're enabling, you're allowing. And actually, when you're a parent, and also I am a parent who works in the education system
Mm.
and has worked in education for 20 years. I know the education system. I know different settings. I've worked in very different settings. So it's not just a case of make them, just make them go.
It's really complex, isn't it? I think, like from my experience as well, and a bit like both of you, my background was in, working through education. I was writing, occupational therapy reports for tribunal, going into schools and working with the kids, working alongside schools. And yet you were seeing, when I came to it myself as a parent, it was something completely different. I think I thought I could just sail through it. I would just know the language. I'd be all right. And we were really lucky. The school relationship that we had was brilliant with the school, but it still broke down. Even at that point, it wasn't the right environment. I think all the time there is this, you can get this kind of adversarial thing going on, can't you, between parents and school? And sometimes I wonder whether actually, like you're talking about, Rachel, there's this blame thing. There's got to be an answer, there's got to be a reason for something. And actually, there's a bigger thing at play, which nobody has control over, which is around the government and policies and procedures and what you've got to do. And as a parent, you've got to do this. And as a school, you've got to do that. And then I think what ends up happening is then that's when the adversarial stuff starts to come in. And it becomes a really, really difficult relationship to hold and manage.
And that's where we wanted to do a piece of work around it, because when we started, we met online, actually on EBSA
Dating.
Facebook.
Yes.
Well, yeah, something like that, yeah. So it was a Facebook group, support group. I put in an anonymous message because I wanted to explain that my background was that I was a head teacher and it was a parent group. And I know, I've worked with so many parents over the years, and it must just be so hard. And I know that there's a lot of emotion out there. But Rachel actually commented on one of my messages, and we talked about doing something together, and then met up online outside of that. And when we was starting to brainstorm, what could we offer? Who are we offering it to? Why are we doing it? The thing that we talked about a lot in those early conversations was that real issue around the poor relationship often between the parents and the schools, when actually the frustrations, whilst they're caused by different things, both sides are extremely frustrated that there are certain blockers that get in the way when it comes to meeting the child, and that actually both sides want the best for that young person. It's just that the system is just so hard to navigate, and there are different pressures on both sides. And so we wanted to do something that would support both professionals working in schools and the families, and help them to come together and form better and more positive relationships in the best interest of the child. Because the child is so important in all of this, and the parent, I completely understand, wants to fight for that child and the right thing for that child. And there are certain pressures from the government, from the local education authority on the school. And I think sometimes the staff within the school don't appreciate how challenging it is for the parents, and likewise the parents don't always understand the constraints that are in place and imposed upon the by the local educational authority, and it just bringing those things to light as well.
And I think that the old saying of "don't shoot the messenger." I think that's what I see in my work a lot with parents, and I've been through it as a parent, but also as a professional. And the fight is hard. So for a parent who doesn't know the system, it's it must be absolutely impossible.
Yeah.
And I think what you get is the school are the people that the parents can speak to, and the parents are the people that the school can interact with. So then it ends up a little bit of a fight, but it's not like Terri said, both sides want what is best for that young person. Both sides have very different pressures. But it ends up being, the school's the messenger of what the local authority is imposing. The parent is the messenger of what the child is telling them. And then it ends up in a little bit of a battle almost. But what Terry and I kind of said was actually both sides are feeling very, very similar things. So hopefully we can try and bring that together so that there can be mutual understanding from both parties.
I think sometimes as well, it's you only know what you know, isn't it? So, like you're saying, we all sit and we've sat in the systems, we know the systems, but actually there'll be parents out there that don't and are trying to find their way through this sometimes chaos of an education system. And then you've also got teaching staff that maybe haven't come across that child's needs before. It's not an area they've worked in before. They're fairly new to teaching. It's not how the school's set up to work. All those kind of things that actually, sometimes as well, it's about, it's that education piece, isn't it? On both sides, is being able to explain and talk about and have those open conversations without people feeling super vulnerable, super scared. And I think, my experience as a parent is at times, our kids are really, really poorly and we're trying to keep them safe. And it's how we do that in a way that we can keep them safe, but they can still go to school, but school can still do that. It's so complex. And like you said right at the beginning, the needs of the kids are often very complex. It's never just, I'll just do that and a tick box, everything will be fine. It's going to be complicated and it's going to take tweaking and movement and try this and try that. And sometimes the setting is just not the right setting. And, where do you go then? I was really excited. So when I heard this is what you were doing and the fact that when you weren't just going down one route, you weren't just going, right, okay, teachers need this. And if we just do this, then it'll all be okay. Or we just need to go down the parent route. And if they just sorted things out at home or a bit stricter, everything would be okay. So I was really interested to know that you were going to offer these kind of two options. And then when I was having a look today as well, almost kind of like an amalgamated option for both parents and school, which really excited me. So I don't know who wants to go first. I'm going to throw this one over to both of you. But explain to the listeners exactly what it is you're offering and when this is coming up.
So we're doing two webinars, which will be the traditional information sharing mainly. The first one specifically aimed at leaders, educational leaders on the topic of EBSA. And then the second one is for parents and families, again, information sharing and tips and advice. And there'll be different resources and tools also that we'll share for those that sign up for those. But then the workshop will be for both, and it will be more around that relationship, and it will be more interactive, a bit more sharing, and again, just to be able to explain as well, I suppose, and be heard within that session. Because I think there are not enough opportunities. So as an educational leader, I sit in rooms with other educational leaders and we talk about this topic, but we're not talking to the parents and hearing from the parents other than the specific parents that you might be dealing with where it's quite emotionally charged and you're trying to just find a way through that particular scenario and that issue. So it's a bit, we'll have to see how it goes. I'm hoping that it's really positive for those that attend. But yeah, we just felt that there needed to be more of an interactive session for
and this was going to happen during the summer?
So no.
Oh, sorry.
No, go on, Rachel.
The first webinar that we're aiming at school leaders is on Wednesday, the 8th of July.
Okay.
Because what we thought that would be a good opportunity to kind of reflect back on the academic year and then think about, okay, how can we move forward into the new academic year? Whereas the second webinar we're looking at for the 2nd of September, Terry?
Yeah, I think.
Which is again for parents and families, because we were trying to think about what are the most crucial times, and there is no easy time for a parent or a family who's going through this with their young person, but right at the beginning of a new academic year after the summer is probably, I would say, for a lot of people, the crux of, this is where a real big transition's about to take place again, and how might the next year look. The workshop, because what I find as well with a lot of parents I work with is sometimes I'll just go to meetings with them and I come away and think, well, I haven't done very much within that meeting. But then the parents said to me, actually having you there gave me the confidence and enabled me to have those difficult conversations with the school. And then the school and the parent have actually then got onto a much more level playing field and being able to collaborate and work together. And they
Yeah.
just needed that little bit of facilitation. So the workshop would, we're hoping will be a nice opportunity for parents and families and schools to come together and have those discussions that might be a little bit more difficult, especially like Terry said, in certain situations where emotions are very, very high and it's a one-on-one situation.
Yeah.
Hopefully there'll be joint discussions, and maybe then there might be a shared perspective of, yes, we're all feeling the same thing. We all want the same thing for the young person. So how can we work together? That would, the ultimate goal is how can everyone work together better?
Yeah. And what we'll do at the bottom of this episode on the show notes is we'll obviously put the links for these webinars and then the workshop as well. Because I would
Which is the
guess
16th of September. Didn't say
16th.
that date.
Okay, you've got
Yeah.
your teacher stuff just before the summer holidays,
Yeah.
and then your parent stuff just in the new kind of academic year, and then followed by your workshop, which is right together. Okay. And we'll put those links there so people can find them. I'll also, on all of our season 5 episodes, there will be Rachel and Terry's links anyway. So you can always pop onto their Insta or their LinkedIn or their Facebooks and check them out there as well. There'll be more information. Is there anything else before I kind of sign you off there? Is there anything else that you kind of want to be able to share with parents or with educators that you think I haven't covered with you during our chat?
For me, I think it's only the bit around the fact that I'm very, very passionate about changing and adapting education and educational settings in order to meet the needs of young people. And so a lot of the work I do, which will be part of this, but also outside of this through Wise Inclusion, is working with leaders to think about how can they better improve, change and adapt education in their schools to meet the needs of a variety of children with special educational needs and neurodiversity. And I think that there is, whilst there's a lot in the white paper that is not particularly pleasing, I think it is actually a point in time now where everyone within the education field are talking about inclusion. And so I think that it's quite exciting times for those that are willing as educational leaders to bring about some change. And feel like there's a bit of momentum going in that direction, which is really positive.
It's a good time as well with the white paper, because I think from a parental perspective, a lot of parents and families are now very worried
Yeah, they are.
that there will be that I think things will become more negative. And I think it's a good time to show parents and families and school leaders that actually no, you can be empowered, and speaking as one voice, we speak a lot louder
Yeah.
and be heard. So I set up Helm Education and left mainstream education because I became disenchanted myself and I can't
Right.
change the system.
Yeah.
But if I can change a tiny bit of the system, then, why not? And actually,
Yeah.
our voices do speak a lot louder.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that, I suppose, because I know that there's a big parent movement now. The parents are very vocal now, and I celebrate that. I think it's amazing that they are now making themselves really heard around some of these really difficult topics and things that have been probably left unchallenged for quite a long time in education. But I'd never really thought about actually bringing schools in on top of that, all those extra voices.
And there's a huge amount of concern around a lot of what's in the white paper within educational fields,
Education.
because
Yeah.
it's around I think everybody within education, as I said, wants to do right by the children. They believe in inclusion, they believe in support, they want to have the resources and the capacity in order to provide for the children. But that comes with funding. We need funding. Mainstreams need funding in order to be able to pay for teaching assistants, to be able to pay for the resources and building the capacity, do the interventions. And that's the bit that's the concern in the white paper, I think, is that the funding isn't, whilst there are sort of bursts of funding and money for certain things, it's the concern I have been raising is, for a child in my setting, in a special school setting, they'll get this amount of funding, but that same child, if they're placed in a mainstream, will not get the same level of funding. And that needs to be addressed, as well as obviously the expertise and the skills and the knowledge and all of that, the development of staff in mainstream. But and then from the parent point of view, you've got the fact that the issues over the EHCPs and children's rights, and that's a huge concern. And that will only fall to schools because of the support plans will then become purely driven by the schools, and they need to be able to have the knowledge, skills, expertise and time to get that right, to get that piece of work right for the children and the families. So I think it is, as Rachel said, there are concerns, slightly different concerns on each side, but huge concerns across both families and in schools. So the coming together to argue that and I've been really trying to push for as many people that I know and speak with within the education field to do that response to the consultation before the 18th of May, because it is vital that we all make our point and fight for what our children deserve.
Yeah.
And there are schools have faced so much pressure that a lot of families don't realise. And as a parent, your child's the one that matters. But actually, to change the system, we all need to understand each other better, and realise schools are not the enemy, and equally parents are not. But sometimes you do need to kind of let off, a little bit of fire and a little bit of rage. But if that's heard, and then everyone's sitting more on the same page, it's going to be stronger.
Yeah.
I think we did a mention as well for anyone listening to the podcast who books through the links that you share, there is a discount
Okay, amazing.
code that's attached to those that will give a discount of £5 per webinar or workshop, whichever is most suitable for people to join. What I was a bit gutted though is that you didn't ask us about the perfect parent thing, because I did loads. I did market research.
Right,
I did market research with my children, so I think we need to
We're
kind of
going to ask
bring
it.
it in at the end instead.
But we're asking it because I said to you I was going to ask you, didn't I? And I've forgotten.
Yes, I did market research with my kids because I thought I am not
Rachel,
answering that.
are you ready for the question? Are you the perfect parent?
I'm going to give the responses that my children give. So my youngest, who's 7, this was his response.
So Rachel just shrugged for those that haven't got audio, video.
I shrugged, yeah, sorry. Whereas my daughter, I thought this was absolutely beautiful. She said, "You are perfect in the imperfect situations." And I was like, wow, that's so poetic. And I didn't pay her to say that. And then my eldest son said that I'm an all right parent, but I'm usually late and that I may need to work on that. It's not wrong.
You've got some homework to do, Rachel, which is to work on your lateness. I like it. Fabulous feedback. I love that. Love that. What about you, Terri? Because I can't let you get away now.
No, I didn't do any market research.
That's all right.
So I'm just going to reflect myself. No, I'm not a perfect parent. I often wonder how I managed to keep it together so well in school and have lots of strategies to deal with other people's children, but very few of my own for my own children. And I think the first one, when I had the first one, apart from not sleeping very well because he was a bit of a poorly baby, I thought we were really good parents. I thought we really knew what we were doing because he was really quite straightforward and did as he was told. But then I had baby number 2, who was very headstrong, very, very headstrong, and still does, well, he's too much like me, I think. I think that's the problem. So no, absolutely not.
But you know what? I think as parents, I think we carry a lot of guilt all the time.
Yeah.
The guilt about everything. Yeah. And actually, do you know what? I think my kids are doing okay. So I think I'm an okay parent. And I think it's okay to say I'm a pretty good parent.
That's all you need to be. You need to be good enough, don't you? That's what
good
I
enough.
Good enough.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for the reminder, Rachel. I would have been gutted if I'd missed that.
My son would have been really annoyed if I hadn't have got his little thing. He did ask to come on the call and I said, no, it's not about you.
Oh.
No, everything's always about him. It's time for me to shine. Okay.
Move over. Yeah.
He's
And you've
making his
not had
own
you've
podcast.
not had any pets in this one either. Usually I
And
get
there's no
introduced.
pets in this one. No, but I do. Yeah, I do like to feature pets in a lot of the calls that I do.
I need another podcast episode where we just bring all the family in, all the pets.
Bit of
All
animal
the
therapy.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's great. I want to thank both of you so much. As I say, I am so grateful for your sponsorship of the podcast. It's what helps it keep going. It helps me keep delivering it and putting it out there to parents and making sure that it's available for parents for free, that there isn't a cost to parents to access the podcast, but also for professionals. I was talking to someone today, a professional, another OT, who's saying that she listens to it, just information for her work and her understanding about what parents go through. So it supports a whole heap of people, and I'm really appreciative of it. And I know the listeners will be too, that it gets to keep going. So thank you for being the sponsors for season 5. Welcome to the podcast. And if anyone has got any questions for Rachel or Terri, you'll find their details in the show notes. You will find them on each of the episodes through series 5. Reach out, say hi to them. I'm sure they'd love that. They'll be around, I'm sure, commenting on posts and stuff like that, that if you want to reach out and ask them a question, do that. There are so many of us out there with kids that are struggling to attend school. You are not on your own. And equally, if you are a school, I'm sure there's schools out there that they cannot be a school out there that doesn't have kids that are struggling to attend. So they can reach out to. So thank you both ever so much. And I will look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Just before you go, I just want to give you a quick reminder that if you want to follow me on Instagram, the podcast has its own Instagram page, the Untypical Parent Podcast. And if you fancy maybe being a podcast host, I also have an Instagram page for the Untypical Podcaster, supporting those of us who feel like we maybe don't quite fit the podcasting mold, but really fancy trying our hand at podcasting. Make sure to go and follow me on those, and I'll see you at the next episode.